Welcome to the Omz Property Podcast, your go-to guide for navigating the world of property investing. I am your host, and in every episode, I sit down with property investors, developers, and top industry experts to share their insights, strategies, and inspiring stories. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, join us as we explore all aspects of building wealth through property. Welcome back to another episode of the Omz Property Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favourite topics, investing in HMO properties. And I'm privileged to be joined with Ed from HMO Checker and HMO Designers. Ed, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you so much. Cheers for making the effort to come in and see me.
That's all right.
I'm hoping that the viewers and listeners are going to get some really good content from you about all the tips and tricks on how to create lovely luxury HMOs like the ones that you seem to be creating.
Yeah.
So you'll have to share as much of your knowledge as you can with us. But let's start off with you, if it's okay, just getting to know you a little bit. Mm-hmm. So if you could tell us who you are and what you do, that'd be great.
Yeah, so thank you for that introduction. It's very nice, very kind. My name's Ed, like you said. I run HMO Designers, which is an architecture practice where we work nationally to design and build HMOs and do the planning permissions and the technical drawings and that sort of thing. We've also recently launched an app, which is called HMO Checker, which is almost like a sister company of HMO Designers. And that helps people to analyse properties to then hopefully convert into HMOs. So it does all that sort of due diligence, all that boring data gathering, which is really manual. It does that in an automated way so that it cuts down that due diligence time, basically, when you're looking at new areas and new properties to be converted to HMOs. I have also done a couple of JVs recently with a JV partner. I was just telling you before this. So they've been really successful, basically because I've got the architecture practice and, I like to think I'm a specialist with HMOs. So, he brings the kind of financial element and I source the property, see it all the way through. And we've kind of opened a limited company together and we split that limited company 50-50.
Amazing.
And then, because of the strategy of HMO, which, you're aware of and a lot of people are, BRRRRRR, as everyone says. How many R's can you put on it? But basically, you can convert properties, refinance them, and pretty much get 90 to 100% of your money back on that first refinance. So that's been really good for us.
If you do it properly.
If you do it properly, it really hinges on the commercial valuation. I mean, the first time I did it, because commercial valuation just seems like this magical thing that doesn't exist, Like you kind of can't believe it when you first hear about a commercial valuation.
It's almost too good to be true, actually. Yeah. And there's a WhatsApp group that I'm in, a property WhatsApp group, just load of, it's actually one of the local property meets and they've got this WhatsApp group. And there was actually a conversation in there yesterday about commercial property valuations, and quite a senior guy in the group who is pretty well known. Someone was saying like, oh, I want to get this valuation and here's a list of surveyors. Which ones would you recommend and which ones wouldn't you recommend? It's for a HMO commercial valuation. Mm-hmm. And everyone's piping up, don't use them, do use them. They're all giving their opinions on which surveying firm would be best for a commercial valuation. But what was really interesting is someone actually then wrote, if you're building your business, your HMO business, solely on getting this commercial valuation, one day it's all going to come tumbling down. And I was like, whoa. Because ultimately a lot of people that do HMO conversion projects, and they are trying to go larger or 6-bed all en suite and get a hybrid valuation or larger suite generis, they're building their business on that sole practice that they need this commercial valuation to refinance and pay back investors or to get money back out to go again. So sometimes it does, you do sort of think, is this going to be around forever? And, maybe we should talk to Rick's chartered surveyors about that and get their opinions on it a bit more. But it does sometimes, like you said, it seems a bit too good to be true, doesn't it? To be able to take a residential house, certainly in areas where the bricks and mortar valuation is so different to the yield commercial based valuations. Sometimes you go up north and you've got a house which you can double, triple its value. Down in the south, that doesn't seem to happen so much. The value of the 5-bedroom family home with the ensuite and the rear extension, the discrepancy between that and the yield based is never double. But up north it can be triple. So sometimes it does worry me a little bit. But
yeah, I mean,
what
to be honest, that's why, especially with my own investments, I do them down south.
Oh right, okay.
So I'll do London south, mainly, and that is because of the commercial valuation. Really, I mean, what allows me to sleep at night is knowing that on the commercial valuation that we achieved on that first one, it was 620,000. We purchased that property for 195, so 195,000. Properties are worth around 300 though on that room, so it was really below market value because it was a squat when we purchased it, basically. But what allows me to sleep at night is knowing that it's 75% of the loan that you get, right? So 75% of 620, I think it was 480 that we got as actual real cash back in the bank. And anyone will purchase that property for 480. That's essentially the bricks and mortar valuation.
You can always pay the loan back.
Yeah, so you always know you can pay the loan back, and that's what the bank is kind of banking on, that you're really able to pay that commercial valuation back.
Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to introduce a sponsor of the channel. Trinity Finance is a directly authorised FCA regulated mortgage brokerage. Founded in 2015 with over 30 mortgage brokers, we're really well placed to help you with all your property finance needs. Starting with first-time buyers and those moving home, we also help people remortgaging residential and buy-to-let property. Alongside that, we specialise in ground-up development, commercial lending, HMO funding, mezzanine, auction, and also your traditional buy-to-let. If that's of interest, get in contact with us via email at info@trinityfinance.co.uk, or you can give us a ring on 01322 907 000, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Do you not think then, if you could always sell it for 480, but you're unlikely to ever sell it for 620, for example, do you not think, from a lending perspective, do you not think that they would ever catch on that actually you are 100% exposed at 100% loan to value on this project? I mean, I know we're going I'm becoming a complete conspiracy theory now, all about HMOs. Bearing in mind, I'm doing this myself.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I know. I'm the same, to be honest. When I first started doing this, I really just couldn't believe it. Yeah. So I've done a lot of research into this commercial valuation stuff just because I wanted to make sure that I was safeguarded and my investor was. But no, I mean, I don't know if you know Richard Nichols.
Yeah, I know him quite well.
Yeah. So he sells these kind of HMOs to high net worth individuals, and there is a real market for it, and they do sell for the commercial valuation. So it's not that there is no market, it's just a smaller market, and it'll probably take a little bit longer. I mean, our goal with the investor that I'm working with, we want to get it to 10 plus properties, that portfolio, and then we would sell that as an entire portfolio. And you just sell it as a real cash flowing kind of, clean machine for a high net worth person or business, basically.
So could you talk me through that deal then? So you bought that property at 195 grand.
Yeah.
You don't need to give away location and things, but if you just give us what did you spend on it? What did you do to it? What is it now? And a bit more of the detail if you can.
Yeah, so I'm pretty open about the location and stuff on my socials, so it's all good. But it's in Eastleigh, which is between Winchester and Southampton. Okay. So it's not a massive city or anything. It's a town between two big cities, Winchester and Southampton. And I live in Winchester, so it's a stone's throw from me, which is why I picked that location. It's non-Article 4, so we were able to do lawful development certificate for 6 bedrooms. The reason I chose that route is because we've done, hundreds of planning applications through HMO designers. I've seen it go wrong in Article 4 areas where someone's gone on a bridge, they've expected to get the planning, it doesn't happen for whatever reason. They're sat there for a year, maybe a year and a half, it's got to go to appeal. So I didn't fancy that. I wanted to keep it simple, non-Article 4 area. And Eastleigh's got high demand. You just need to make sure you're not being really punchy with the room rate. So we purchased it for 194,000. It's in quite a commercial location. It's just around the corner from the station. You've got a nice cafe, a pub just out the front of it. You can actually get a train from Eastleigh an hour into London as well, the right one. So, and you've got Southampton Airport just next to it, and then you can commute either to Southampton and Winchester to work. So it's good for professionals. So we went kind of ultra high end, that classic model where it's really nice, bedrooms, en suites in every bedroom, big kind of shared space, dining area, kitchen, big outside space with bikes as well. We did go full sui generis. So we did the lawful development certificate, and then a sui generis application after. So it was a 7-bed all en suite.
So when did you put the sui generis application in? Because there's different views on this. Some people are going, so I don't know what you did to the property, but some people are going loft conversion, rear extension, build the shell, get it all done, hold back the biggest bedroom as a additional living space or as a storage room. Certificate of lawfulness is granted. They've actually built the whole thing, apart from the 1 or 2 bedrooms that they've held back, don't have en suites in them yet, but they've kind of put the plumbing there and stuff. And then at what point are you actually submitting your full planning application to go from C4, 6-bed, all en suite to a sui generis HMO?
So I always take the view, if it's a non-Article 4 area, you do 6-bedroom lawful development certificate with the dormer loft conversion and the rear extension, all of that encompassed under one application, which is permitted development, right? Then whilst you're in build, so at that point you started the strip up, you started the build, you then submit sui generis straight away. So you
before you've actually implemented.
Yeah, before we've implemented the use. Yeah. So it wouldn't be called, in planning terms, the description wouldn't be C4 to sui generis. It would be C3 to sui generis, because you haven't implemented the use yet. But planning aren't, they're not stupid. They know what's going on. When you first submit that lawful development certificate as well, they're quite aware what you're going to do.
So on your planning application, I know we're getting into a bit of the technicalities now, but I do think this is a strategy that people are trying, probably listening to this or watching this, may be considering HMO investment. So it's kind of good to pick your brains on it. But when you are submitting the planning application, I'm assuming you're referencing the fact there's a certificate of lawfulness and that you already have this established use and that's in your back pocket. Yeah. So it's not like, I know there's technicality of not saying C4 to HMO, you're saying C3, but you're referencing the fact that it is already
definitely
a HMO.
Don't call it C4 because it'll get
refused because it's not.
It'll be invalid. And you'll have to wdraw it.
Yeah. Makes total sense. Yeah. Okay. And then what's your success ratio like? And
really good. I mean, this is why I go for non-Article 4 every time. The risk is much, much less. You retain your permitted development rights. Yeah. So the way PD works is it doesn't encompass normal policy items. So say on a sui generis application or anything full planning, you've got multiple SBD documents, so supplementary planning guidance, which the case officer would have to look at. So they're going to have to assess it on parking, bin storage, bike storage, noise, disturbance, all of these things. That doesn't get, they don't look at the policy within that lawful development certificate. So you get that out the way. You showcase that you've implemented that use. And then that final sui generis application, all you're asking for is 1 bedroom. You've already addressed all the policy because it's already going to be a HMO, a 6-bed. They know that's your fallback position. So how can they refuse it on 1 bedroom? It's unjustifiable.
What about 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms?
Yeah, I mean, but as you start to progress to 8, 9, sort of 10 beds, that's when it starts to get a bit more tricky. If you go in 6 to 7, I like to think that that's a pretty easy process. But 8, 9 is okay. I think as soon as you start going above that, they can then start to be like, it is a material change in terms of the parking in the policy. Because when you're asking for 1 person, it's like it's not going to make any difference to the road. But 2 people, 3 people, they can start to bring that policy point into play.
Yeah. Really interesting. And this conversation is very poignant for me because I've got something very similar to you at the moment. I've got a high net worth individual that I've partnered up with. Yeah. And we're both on a bit of a journey to try and do 10 HMO conversions as quickly as we possibly can to build a portfolio in a new location. I've been investing in some other locations, but this particular new location, which I don't want to share. Unlike you, I don't want everyone on this podcast to go and flood my new location, which is already becoming really saturated with HMOs. I've shared it with you off camera already. But one of the things that I think
how many people is this going out to? So
I don't know. It might go viral. You don't know. If you're liking this video and you're listening and you're watching and you like it, share it with any of your other property investors, and we might get a load of people to learn about some HMOs. Who knows? Yeah. So we've got the only thing we're doing slightly differently to what you're doing. I think, I'm not sure. We seem to be doing a couple of applications to get to that stage rather than 1. So what I'm doing is There's 3 or 4 projects on the go at the same time. The first one we've done, a homeowner application under prior notification for a 6 metre rear extension with neighbour consultation. And we've not
that's prior approval, right?
Yeah, prior approval. And we've not mentioned HMO on that application.
Yeah.
What we found is if you put HMO and then ask for that, the neighbours kick up a fuss. So we've then had 6 metres approved with no neighbours moaning. That gets approved. And then from there, we're then submitting HMO conversion with the loft from C3 to C4, noting that prior approval application on the application. So that's 2. And then the third application to sui generis after we've implemented the shell and built the structure. It's only difference, but I guess that is only because it depends whether you're doing a 3 metre extension or going bigger to 6.
The only difference is that prior approval, really.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of them with investors and things like that. And if you need that for an extra bedroom in the garden or something like that in the rear of the property, then great.
Yeah.
And if you can get it through, great as well. You know, if you don't get objections from neighbours,
you need to
definitely don't say it's a HMO. Definitely keep that one under wraps. I mean, my brand name, right, is HMO Designers, and that's on our title block.
Oh, I see.
So what we have is another company called HMO Architecture, which is where we do high-end resi stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll use that when we're doing prior notification.
That's very clever.
Or anything that we don't want people to be alerted of HMO on. It's HMO Architecture. It looks like nice high-end resi.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we'll come in with the HMO Designers. But that's the strategy you've got to take, really.
It's such a shame that you have to do that, though, isn't it? I mean, like the area that I've started to kind of go quite heavy into, unfortunately, they have a real anti-HMO sort of. I suppose they've got saturated in the area quite a lot. There's a lot of HMOs that have gone up, and some of them are pretty poor quality. Some of them are being let to undesirable characters, and they're causing a nuisance on the road. And so you've kind of had the local MP in that area rallying a lot of the residents to sign petitions and things, and they probably just need to bring in an Article 4 and slow down the level of HMOs that are being saturated there. But it is a real shame that even national, when you're operating your architectural business like this, that you see, perhaps a different perspective on maybe like neighbours' comments and things when they see HMO designers as opposed to Thistle Architect. It's crazy, isn't it?
No, it is crazy. I mean, I'm super passionate about HMOs, like you probably are, and everyone else in the industry, I think. But it's an accommodation that's super needed. It's the market asking the private sector, because there's super high demand for it, and there's a reason for that. It's affordable. It's a nice place to live in, and all your bills are included. It's
amazing.
better. I've lived in HMOs. I've lived in really bad HMOs when I was a student in Southampton. And I can't believe how amazing the accommodation is that's getting produced these days. It's so much better. But yes, the stigma is a real problem. I think it's pretty unfortunate. I mean, I don't know about you, but I even get it from some friends and family and things.
Yeah,
where,
I do. Yeah,
they're like, "Oh, you work in HMOs, sort of family events, things like that." But you've just got to explain exactly what it is, exactly what you're doing. You've got to articulate it. You've got to get it across, and I think that comes with showcasing it on social media. Showing the really high end stuff that you're doing. But at the end of the day, the market's asking for it. It's not the private market giving something that's not needed.
I think if you can be proud of what you've created, and also if you ask yourself, would you live there if you had to, and you weren't a family man, for example, and you didn't need a larger home, would you live there? And if the answer to that is yes, then hats off to you for creating that space. And some of the latest HMOs that we've done, they're amazing, like en suites. Little tea stations with their own kitchens and their own no cooking facilities, but kitchens with little fridges in there, nice televisions, the furniture, slatted walls. I need to upgrade my own home to get the level of what I'm putting. You do look at them and you think, wow, that's perfect.
I'd live
soundproofed to an inch. You can't hear your local. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
I always think if everything goes kaput, I'll just move into one of the rooms in a HMO that I've done. Yeah, because they are so nice. Yeah, like you say, the acoustics and everything else, just like the actual infrastructure of it is amazing. And they're just good places to live. And also, through the pandemic and everything, I think what we realised is living in a studio flat on your own as a young professional is not ideal. No. Because if you get stuck there, you have no one to socialise with, and communities are becoming smaller and less, communicative. So having something like a HMO where you have a shared space where you see people every day, and you can sit down and have a dinner with someone is a great thing.
Yeah, and they're all, well, not all of them, but a lot of the places that, they build friendship and they get to know each other and they take each other's parcels in, and that sort of stuff just naturally happens, doesn't it? So, and I think some people that don't know much about HMOs, because there'll be people listening to this that have always done it the old school way, and they've done in the good old days when you could get cheaper mortgages, and you could buy a house with sometimes even a 15% deposit on a buy to let, and then hold it for a long term. It just went up in value and it paid for itself, and there wasn't all this anti-landlord legislation hammering the life out of you.
Yeah.
They just, why would I do that? I'll just rent to a family home, or I'll do social housing of some sort. And when they think house in multiple occupation, they probably think headache in multiple occupation. So they just don't want to enter that space. But I think some of those people, you need to play to the cards that you're dealt, right? And in this environment, a lot of the time, you're really going to be riding the storm if you're holding buy to let for a long time. It will work and it will pay itself, but it's not hugely profitable like it used to be. So you've got this small island where we can't build any more properties, even though they say they're going to change the planning system and let us build loads more. Well,
that's not going to happen.
Well, let them change it. Let them change it. But who is going to build it?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just built some houses. I tell you now, with the red tape that's around doing this stuff and the lack of decent contractors and decent people in the construction industry, it's not like it used to be. But if you go back years ago, people would learn a craft, and you would have stonemasons, and you'd have people that would learn to be a bricklayer. The average bricklayer is probably in their 60s. Where are the young bricklayers that are going to build these houses? So we've got this national housing crisis where they're saying, don't worry, we'll solve that because we'll just create this thing called grey belt and we'll let you build loads more houses. Let's see if that ever happens. But even if they do, right, you've got to do that for like decades to be able to solve the problem. So the fact that we are taking houses because we've got such a demand for people that want to rent and they can't afford to rent anywhere, and chopping them up into 6-7 bedroom, I don't think that's going away for a long time. And I think the demand is going to keep going up.
I don't think that's going away for a long time. And, we all know about net immigration. I think, there's more people coming to the country than leaving. Like you say, it's an island. There's not enough properties. So, and it's pretty unaffordable here. For most people, including people who are even, on the way to being successful, it's still pretty unaffordable.
But then the other sort of objection that I get a lot of the time for landlords that are in that, I don't know, they might have 5 to 10 houses, they rent them to family homes. It was very profitable, and now it's not as much, but they're never going to sell because it's their thing they've been building for a long time. To convince someone to go through that process of converting something to a HMO and doing all these adaptations and getting a license and satisfying planning conditions and doing all the building regs that come with sui generis applications and things, they will say, it'll be a headache from a tenant perspective because they'll stay for 3 months, 6 months, they'll leave, and there'll be so many people coming and going. I don't know how you find that, but in my HMOs, the majority of them stay. I mean, so I did a HMO back in 2018 near my office, and I've got two of the rooms have got the same tenants since it was finished. They've lived there for 5 to 6 years.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I do find that the voids are pretty low. You can get sort of 98% occupancy, can't you? So. Yeah, I think people end up staying for much longer than they think. I've done that in the past. You've moved somewhere, you think you're going to be there a month, you end up being there 2 years. But it goes to show the quality of the property that you created.
I'm not saying that's constant, but I don't think they're all going to be at Airbnbs where people are in and out in the month. So most people are signing 6 months, 1 year tenancy agreements.
I think on the point about people view HMOs as a bit of a headache, right? I think they're probably the most passive thing that you can get in the property market because, it's a bit of a headache creating it. You've really got to go through the red tape with it. But if you know what you're doing and you stay on the right line and you educate yourself, you're pretty safe. And then because you can afford to have a managing agent, so long as you get the right managing agent, it's then super passive. And I know through speaking to Richard Nichols, having a really good managing agent managing your HMOs makes them much, much more sellable in the future because, there's proof there. There's proof in the pudding that, what a high net worth individual is going to want is something that is passive, that's just a kind of cash flowing machine that they can put their money in. And that's the ideal thing. I think that's about as passive as it gets really with HMOs, to be honest. Buy to lets, I'd say they're more of a headache than a really well-oiled HMO for professionals.
Yeah, I mean, the only other, we're selling the HMO to the audience now, aren't we? But the only other kind of headache with a family home is if you do get a problem tenant, the eviction process can be very challenging. You hear this all the time, don't you? Like, I haven't had rent for 6 to 9 months, and then I got them out and I still didn't get any of that rent arrears back. HMO, one tenant goes or stops paying you, well, you've still got 5-6 others that are paying you. They're all not going to stop paying you at the same time. So voids are less, aren't they? And that's quite a nice thing.
Spread your fingers a bit, don't you?
This shouldn't be considered financial advice, but if you are listening and thinking about investing in HMOs, do your research.
Definitely do your research. Yeah.
Ed, can I ask you a bit more about the HMO Checker? Now, I know obviously in the industry you're regarded as someone who specialises in HMO architecture and planning. Okay, and there are lots of architects that will measure properties. Maybe they've done a HMO application in the past. They may or may not have. They may know something about it, but they won't just do HMO planning applications day in, day out. That's something we know. You're very well placed in that. If you guys want to go and check him out, it's HMO Designers. Look at the website, go on Instagram, do your own research, but you'll see that is what they do day in, day out. Okay. And not only do they do it, I'm blowing your trumpet here, but he also is actually going and implementing that and doing his own HMOs. So he's seeing from the technical perspective of just sitting behind a PC doing drawings. I say I wouldn't want to learn AutoCAD. But if you're drawing it, then you're getting all the technicalities and you're understanding the structural, and then you're actually implementing it. Yeah. It provides a different perspective because now you see from a developer's perspective what it takes to actually build one of these things out, and you can see where the issues are. So we know that you're really well versed in that space. I hope and I think. But what about the HMO Checker? Now I know this is newer, but can you talk to me a bit about why is that something people should check out, I suppose?
So, I mean, just to take it back a bit, the reason we built the Checker application, I always say it's an arm to HMO designers because it really is. I mean, I spotted that there was an advantage to providing a national HMO service in terms of design, planning permissions, technical drawings, that type of thing. It's really odd for an architecture practice to do that. It's not industry standard.
It's niching, isn't it?
You stick to your local area because you get to know the council, you get to know the requirements, you get to know, you create your network there and you've got a really good little pocket. The difference with HMOs is it's so nuanced and there's almost more that you pick up from providing a national service because you learn something new in every single area that, because the case officers, they're reading national guidance, but then they're also looking at the local guidance. So you pick lots of things up and you can hone that all into one area. I wanted to provide a national service for HMOs. So when I started to provide that, we did a bit of marketing. So, we showcased that we were HMO designers and we created some videos and, tiles that you'd see on kind of Facebook and that type of thing. And we got a lot of people coming through our funnel. And basically, most of them would come to me and say, I've got this property in Croydon, can it be a HMO? And I'd say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm just going to, spend an hour doing a bit of research around Croydon because you'd have to pick up the local guidance and know exactly what's going on there. And it just became such a manual process every time. And, me and my business partner at the time, we were just like, this is a logistical nightmare. It's not going to work. But, I then had the kind of light bulb moment. If we could automate that process, then we could scale as a business across the country. So we created Checker so that it would qualify our clients, right? So then I would go, they'd send me the address, I'd put it through HMO Checker. It would then tell me straight away within 15 seconds, just as a bit of back-end code, it's in an Article 4 area. We can find these licensed HMOs around it. Density's too high. And I go, sorry, sir, that can't be a HMO. It's a really bad idea going in for planning for that. Whereas before, finding out that licensed HMO information and that it's in Article 4 and things like that would take hours.
Using
that would honestly
take
4 or 5 hours of time to try and pull that together. So we built it to scale our business, realised, there was a market for it, and I didn't have to really do market research because I already knew, because we were getting asked this question every day. So we created a front end. I tested it a few times. We released it a few times. We iterated it. We worked with some key developers, that type of thing. And then we launched it about 6 months ago publicly. I like to think the UX is very nice, very clean, easy to use. It's been built for anyone, really. And any kind of dummy that has no idea about HMOs, it's just, it will essentially do all of that process for you. All you've got to type in is a location, the existing value, and it'll punch out a whole feasibility report and tell you if that property can be a HMO.
So for anyone who wants to go and check that out, is it does it cost money to use it? Is there a free version? How does it work?
Yeah. So I'll get you a promo code after this, okay, specifically.
Yeah.
So basically anyone can sign up using that promo code. It will get them 14 days free and 10 free credits.
Amazing.
Okay. So that's full credits. You can blast that out on 10 properties.
Perfect.
And you can check out any new areas that you want to look at, or just focus on one area. And yeah, that will allow you to test it out in those 2 weeks. There's no obligation. Cancel at any time.
Amazing.
But yeah, it does then go on to a paid subscription.
Yeah, of course.
It just depends on how aggressive you want to be with it. There's different packages, different amounts of credits.
Cool.
So yeah,
Very
you
good.
can choose a package.
Yeah. So in terms of functionality, you're getting, it's kind of like a sense check in a way, isn't it? It's like, put this in and so if it come up, it might say non-Article 4, this potentially could be 6, maybe even go to 7 bedroom. Does it take into consideration the footprint of the property and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. So you get the report summary at the top. That'll tell you what's the predicted number of rooms it thinks it can get for extending it. And it bases that off the EPC, so what the existing floor area is and then what the property type is. And it will make a prediction about how many rooms that can be. So typically it's, if it's 100 square meters, it's a terrace house, doesn't have extensions on it, it's probably going to be 7 beds, 7 en suites, shared space with an extension. So it does a bit of cleverness with that. It'll give you a predicted room rate. If you scroll down from that, it then tells you what the density is. So it will show you up to 160 meters, you can scroll a bar and it will tell you how many licensed HMOs are around it. But not just that, we're the only platform that also brings in planning data. So we've got a scraper for every local authority now, and that pulls in every HMO application in the area. So it'll tell you approved, pending and refused. So say, you've got 100 houses in a 50-metre radius, 10 of them are HMOs, that's 10%. Or let's say 8 of them are HMOs, so that's 8%. You're thinking, I could get another HMO in there because the policy is 10% at 50 metres, but there's a pending application that you don't know about.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's why it's so powerful, because then you're like, that's not going to work, move on to the next one. Yeah.
So if anyone's like trying to do their first HMO conversion, they're listening to this, they've dabbled in property or they've done something, and they think, well, do you know what? Let's give this a go and let's find my first HMO.
Yeah.
It's almost a bit silly not to use something like this. I mean, you can pull all this data in yourself. It's time consuming, right? And there are some other bits of software and things, but trying to decipher an Article 4 map. I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you have, but if the viewers have ever, it's an absolute nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, it's printed years ago where it looks like is that road in? Is that road out? It's a nightmare.
It's terrible.
HMO licensing app, to find HMO licenses on properties, you're downloading this Excel spreadsheet from the web, if you can find it somewhere, and then you look, and it's just so difficult to get the data and look at it all, isn't it? So if you're sort of thinking, well, look, I'm thinking about doing a HMO, especially with the promo thing, if they can just test it out and see if it works for them, it's a great way of just saying, actually, am I taking something on which could go horribly wrong?
Yeah. And
perhaps my first HMO venture may never even be a HMO, because I see it all the time. I get people saying, "Oh, I've bought this property and I want to turn it into a HMO." And what area is that in? Oh, it's in Bromley. Bromley's an Article 4 area. So how are you going to do that? Because as soon as you put a HMO application in Bromley, which is a largely residential homeowner type location where most people, without bringing politics in, are kind of voting Conservative and really care about their home and everything, they'll all have negative connotations towards HMOs. As soon as you put a HMO application in next door, you're going to be the person that gets the 70 comments saying, please don't do this. And then the local MP starts knocking on everyone's doors, rallying people to do that. So this is a way of really just saying, caution, be careful first, check this. If that gives you the green light, further investigation needed and continue to look at whether you want to do this. It's a great little tool, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I love a quote from my mate James Rogers, who does property poppadoms. He called it
James,
due diligence on steroids.
Amazing.
Because it is. I mean, it's basically, it's all the due diligence that you would need when you're doing that initial research, but something that took 5 hours to pull together by an expert as well. You'd need to be an expert to pull that together. It takes 15 seconds and anyone can do it.
It's
you know, it's that
incredible.
kind of thing that needs to be automated. I don't want to be doing that, and I'm supposed to be the expert. You know,
Yeah.
we would normally charge for something like that, but that's a task.
It's like a feasibility study.
It's a task that a robot needs to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that can be automated. We've got the data; it just needs to be pulled together. But
It's brilliant.
it saves tons of time, but it's not just. If you think about it's 5 hours cut down to 15 seconds, but it's not just that. It means that you're not spending 5 hours on all of those properties, right? But then you're not going to the viewing either. You're not contacting the estate agent. You're not kind of faffing around with it and speaking to other people about it and things like that. You know, you'll put it through HMO Checker. Instantly, it might show you there's a red flag.
Yeah.
Because there's really fundamental things that mean a house cannot be a HMO.
Yeah.
And some people just miss it entirely.
Room sizes, etc. Yeah.
Room sizes, density, right? In certain areas of London, and I'm sure Bromley is one of these, they literally say you cannot convert family houses to HMOs.
Loss of family home.
Loss of family home. They'll say, you know, 3-bed or bigger family home.
Yeah.
And you cannot do it.
Yeah.
And then basically the case officer can just say no every single time, which is why you can still invest in Article 4 areas, obviously. You've just got to go through the planning hoops.
Yeah.
But HMO Checker on it has a planning likelihood. So basically, because we've got all the planning data, what we do is we purely just look at how many approvals are there for actual full planning applications and how many refusals are there. And it just literally shows the percentage. So in Bromley, it might be sort of, you know, 10%, which is really low. That's a red flag. If it's, I don't know, somewhere like Croydon, it's probably something like 30% because you can still get things approved there. You've just got to find the right properties.
Yeah, really interesting. Ed, I spoke to you a while back and invited you to come and talk at the HMO workshop that we're hosting. We did a HMO workshop in 2024. We had 7 or 8 speakers. It was a full day in central London. I think we had 100 people attend. And it's done almost at a sort of break-even cost type event. It's not a profit-making thing. Everyone comes along. Tickets are pretty reasonable. You basically have breakfast. There's 3 or 4 talks, and then people have lunch together, and then a couple more. 3 or 4 more talks in the afternoon. It's really content packed with lots of learning.
I can't wait.
It was really good last year. Really enjoyed it. We videoed the whole thing and we put some of it back out on social media, and we had to hire the venue, which wasn't cheap because it's in London. But anyway, it was a great day. We're doing it again in June. I asked if you'd come and do a talk. Do you think it would be valuable for? I would imagine another 100 people are going to come, see how the ticket sales go. But do you think it'd be valuable maybe to show on the day how the HMO Checker tool works? Is that something you could do live with the audience when they attend?
Putting the pressure on me now.
Yeah,
aren't you?
is that,
No, I'm joking.
Because I've looked
100%.
around it and I just think, because the thing is, you could sell that tool as much as you want, but until you actually physically try it yourself, it's so difficult to see what it's. Do you see what I mean? So,
100%. I mean, we were saying just before this podcast, like as much as I can try to articulate it, it's software. You know, it's really boring until you actually see it live. I mean, I did a talk at Mitch Nunn's recently.
Oh, right,
You know, good friend of mine, great guy, doing some great stuff in Southend. And an issue happened where we were showing it on the PowerPoint. As soon as you come out the PowerPoint, it just doesn't show it on the HDMI. Oh, right. So I had to kind of talk and just do it on the PowerPoint. But so long as we can get it on the screen and I can show the live application on a web app, absolutely,
we'll do that.
I can show it live.
I'm quite techie, so I'll come out the PowerPoint and I'll go in there and I'll share the screen and we'll work it out.
So it was a really great event at Mitch's. It was just a shame that I couldn't get the actual application up live, but showing it live makes such a difference because seeing, you know, the proof in the pudding, basically seeing it actually produce a report in 15 seconds, and maybe someone can shout out from the audience if I really want to put the pressure on a property.
Give us a property.
Put it through it. Really no, I mean, we've got it to a point where it's a very stable application and it works, you know, amazingly. I actually can't believe how well it works.
Well done, mate.
Thank you. It's not been an easy task getting it there. There's, you know, at the beginning, it honestly, I can't believe people used it. It barely worked, but there was a need for it. So,
definitely. I mean, where something doesn't have a lot of friction and you can do something quickly, you're inclined. It's a bit like if you want to kind of get your car valued. Like ringing up someone and saying, "Oh, this is my car. This is the mileage, and what's the condition like?" And you know, trying to get them to give you a valuation is kind of a bit of a painful task. Yeah. But if you can just go on a website and put the reg in, it brings all that information up, and then it says your car's worth between 17 and 18 grand, depending on the condition. You're like, that's what I wanted to know. Lovely. You know, and it kind of something similar to that in the HMO world, isn't it? 15 seconds, you shouldn't do this, or actually this could work. So
that's definitely it. I mean, I had a thought the other day. It reminds me of Kingspan. Do you know the insulation firm, company?
Yeah.
So being, you know, from an architecture background, I specify insulation all the time, as much as that's a boring task. So we have to do something called a U-value calculation, which is where you basically say what the thermal conductivity is of a wall. And the biggest company that does that is Kingspan. So every architect over the country specifies Kingspan every time, even though it's the most expensive insulation, because they have the calculator. So, you know, having Checker is great for us as a business, because it means that, you know, we can work with those people directly.
Other forms of insulation are available, including Recital and do your research.
Do your research.
Kingspan. I think they've gone into a bit off topic, but I think they've gone into creating SIP panels and doing a bit of timber frame stuff. I didn't realise they did that, but it's quite interesting.
Yeah, they do a bit of everything, I think.
Can I ask you a little bit about Article 4? So obviously, because what's quite unique about you is, like you said, you're not operating just in this local area where you know the planning officers and you've done multiple applications and you're the HMO architect in that area, where you may actually go to properties yourself and even do the measuring and then implement and draw and do. So you're actually operating at a national area where if someone comes to you and said, I want to do a HMO in Cornwall or in, you know, up north somewhere, that you could say, yeah, that's fine, we could do that. Now, logistically,
we have done in both of those locations.
Okay, cool, fine. Well, logistically, I tell you now, I know you're not driving to those properties or visiting them and measuring. You are outsourcing the measuring to perhaps a firm that will do that. And then you're getting that data back in, and then you're using your existing software and stuff. So what's quite interesting about that whole thing is you've taken away some of the friction, if you like, that other architects can't seem to remove from their business. So there will be some architectural firms where I see this all the time. People will say, I'm looking for an architect who knows Birmingham. And they only want to work with one in Birmingham that's done this area and has done other planning applications, got data and got this. Whereas now someone can say, well, I'm looking to do a HMO. Who's the best person, or who's a good person to try? Yeah. Well, he does national and he's got rid of the friction because he doesn't need to go there and measure, but he's got all the data and everything there already. So I suppose, where am I going with this, apart from bigging you up for building such a national business and having all the tools and everything else that you've got? But what's the long-term plan for HMO designers? Is it to keep going and building that business as the place to get your HMO applications approved? Are you planning to scale more into property and actually build your portfolio and spend more time and just have it as a ancillary side business that just allows you to do your own planning and stuff cheaply? Like what are your sort of dreams and aspirations for the future, I suppose?
Yeah, definitely the former. So, you know, the idea was always that I want HMO designers, and it is pretty much there now, to be the go-to for national HMO advice. And, you know, the way we've built that really is through innovation, through tech, and through working nationally in lots of different areas. It's actually quite dangerous to go to a general architect and ask them to do a HMO, because it is so specific. There's so many things that we've learned as a business on a national level that a general architect is just not going to do. I mean, majority of our clients are people that come to us, so they'll find us online, and you know, that's because we have a really big presence on SEO, so search engine optimization, so finding it through Google, and obviously people signing up to the app. You know, we then speak to people through that. But majority of the people that use us, they've been stung by a previous architect. So, you know, there's something that architect has done wrong fundamentally in that application that we would have picked up from the beginning. So yes, it's good to have a local architect. I am not denying that for majority of situations, but for HMOs, it really isn't. You know, having a specific, you know, really specialist practice that works nationally is much, much more valuable. And it's not just that, it's, I think, the network that I've built up, you know, meeting people like yourself and other people that I know, the fact that I invest in HMOs myself, it's all the little bits that matter so much, you know, as you start to get towards the end of the HMO. making sure it's finished correctly, making sure you're using the right products, the ongoing maintenance of it, making sure you've got all the paperwork in place for that valuation, getting the right EPC, things like that. The little nuances, the devil is in the detail.
Yeah.
I always say that. The devil is in the detail with HMOs. Yeah. And, I am blowing my own trumpet, but coming to someone like us, we know that detail.
Yeah.
So we can push you in the right direction the whole time. But not just that. I mean, we specifically do high-end HMOs, majority of our work. We do a bit of social housing and student supported living stuff, but it's majority, professionals in city locations, high-end stuff. But yeah, we also have an in-house interior designer. So we go right from the beginning all the way to the end, and we can see that project through all the way to the end. So we can sign that practical completion. We're principal designer. We do all the interior design. Just makes it more cohesive.
Yeah,
means we have more control over it, so it doesn't start to unravel itself towards the end. If that person, say, doesn't have the same level of experience, we can keep guiding them all the way to the end.
Perfect.
And that safeguards the client. Really.
Yeah. Do you know, you're making me think about, because obviously one of my businesses is a mortgage brokerage, and I, started off but I was mortgage broking for a period of time. And when you first start mortgage broking, the key things that you would normally start with are standard residential mortgages and buy-to-let applications. And HMO back then, sort of 15 odd years ago, was what the hell is that? And you've few and far between would you ever. Sometimes you'd do a buy-to-let application and then you'd find out the property's a HMO and you didn't really know what you were doing. And it's only until I started doing a few more HMO finance applications for people that I got to understand some of the technicalities about it. But the real pivotal point for me was when I did my first HMO conversion. The first one I did was a C3 to C4, non-Article 4, hip to gable, loft conversion, rear extension, all let out to nurses, simple. The second one was an 8-bedroom, 7-bathroom, sui generis, in an Article 4 area, planning approved first time round, God knows how. And then I then I refinanced it, and I did my own refinance application. And because I'd taken this property from a 3-bed semi to an 8-bed HMO and then refinanced it myself, I was the developer and the finance expert that had seen it from start to finish. And I learned so much more about HMOs having done it myself rather than just being that person who sat behind the PC doing the application. And that is identical essentially to what you've been doing, because you've got the technical expertise, but then you are actually then going off and doing it and seeing all the technicalities and why it's so important to have an interior architect, design, plan, M&E with the bed layout and everything, because without that thought process and without the drawings and everything you need, creating the HMO becomes this absolute decision fatigue problem that you've got to get through, and it's all just so stressful because everyone's asking you, where do I put this, where do I put that, where's the bed going, where's this going, and you're just becoming this person who's got to answer it all. So the key thing really is, here's the drawings, that's what we've got to do, and it becomes simple, doesn't it? So so the other thing really, like you go to an architect, sometimes they'll just, if they do have some expertise in HMOs, they'll measure, draw, produce the drawing, submit the planning. But then it's actually implementing that, isn't it? And that's the bit that, the more support you can get if you're trying to do a HMO conversion around technical and layout and everything as well. I think that's like fundamentally super important.
Super important, yeah. I mean, the detailed drawings that we do are very, very detailed, specifically for HMO and the specification and everything else. And then that feeds into the interior design. So, making sure you get the electrical plan right. You're showing the right amount of sockets and switches and downlights in the bedrooms and stuff like that. You've thought about where the tanks are going. You've got a pressure tank. You've got, a hot water tank. You've got all of these things that are fundamental to a really good low maintenance HMO that isn't going to be a headache further down. Making sure that's all on the drawings is just so much better long term. I think the other thing is, every single one of our clients, we really push them to do a JCT. Which is a contract between the client and the builder. And basically what happens is, we'll produce a technical set of drawings, we'll do an interior set of drawings, and then the builder will be signed on to those drawings, right? So when they sign that JCT, they have to build it like that. They have to pick everything up. There's liquidated damages. So if they don't finish it in 6 months, they owe you what the income of that property would be week on week. So they're super keen to finish that project. Everyone's clear on what needs to be built. And, the reason we've done that really is because if we don't, it's just going to come back to us. We're going to have to, try and add those bits in as we're going along, but we just make sure it's all in there from the get-go. You're also going to get a much more fixed cost. So you're going to know exactly what the cost is. And hopefully there's not going to be, and I say hopefully, there's not going to be many uplifts at the end, because there's always an uplift with the built environment, unfortunately. There's always something that you'll find, I don't know, rotting beams or something on the ground floor, and you have to add that in. But I mean, so long as you get the right builder, the uplifts are pretty low. And so long as you've got the right architect and practice as well, and you've got that really detailed set, that's the idea.
Ed, it's been really good talking to you. I'm going to start to round up now because we've been going on for a while. I think we probably could have done this another episode. The amount I still want to ask you about another 30 questions.
I'm loving it. Yeah.
But I'm also sort of thinking the viewers probably want to stay around for 45 minutes to an hour, and we're probably at that already. So we'll definitely carry on and do another one at a later date.
Awesome.
And obviously I'll see you at the HMO workshop as well, where
I'm
sure people will get to network and mingle with you and spend the whole day with you there as well. So that'd be amazing. I like to try and finish each episode, if possible, with a recommendation from you on something that you can recommend to the people watching or listening. So either a book that you've read that inspired you, another podcast that you might listen to, or a website that you use. And you're not allowed to recommend the hmochecker.co.uk because we've spoken about that one enough already. But book, podcast,
God damn it, that's what I was going to say.
So something that you think, and it doesn't even have to be related to HMO or property, to be honest with it, just something that you think could, if you can think of anything.
One of the best tips that I give to my clients, and when I onboard people to the app as well, HMO Checker, one of the best things you can do, if you're in a new area, say, and you're trying to figure out, what planning is like in that area and how likely it is that you'll get a sui generis application approved. Because even in non-Article 4s, it can sometimes get really tricky at sui generis. Best thing to do is go onto the portal, the planning portal, find a HMO application, so say C3 to C4 or C3 to sui generis, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Download the case officer's report. And in that report, it will literally list out every bit of policy that they're looking for. It will name the documents. It will name the SPD documents. You can go to them. You can have a look at them. It will say, things like how many HMOs are around it, stuff like that. And it's just such a good way of seeing what it's like based on precedents. And it's not 100% because every case officer is different, but it's probably the most valuable document.
So the case officer's report that you can find on the planning portal, just under the decision notice, download it.
Yeah, just in the documents, public information.
And then what about like planning committee meetings? Would you recommend people go or appeals? No, not necessarily appeals.
I've done my fair amount of committee meetings.
Do you think they're good learning for people to attend?
They're good learning, because I think you get a real understanding of the psychology around it, of what people's concerns are, neighbours' concerns, councillors' concerns. I mean, my experience of committees and submitting planning has really fundamentally changed what we submit to planning. Because now the narrative that we drive is totally based on the stuff that I've picked up at committees, sort of nationally. So, noise and disturbance, parking is always a major one. But those things can be addressed. You really need to stand, because I've gone to committees and stood up, and my clients have, based on things that I've helped them to critique, and explained why it should be approved, but on the fact that it's high end, it's not going to be an antisocial place. It's not the stigma around HMOs that you think it is.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff if you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you at the next episode.
Cool. Can't wait for it.